thank you guys so much for joining us today on episode number 3 of HealthyU. I'm Professor Funk, and I'm so excited to have you guys joining us today. And as you guys know, the mission and the heart of this podcast is really about helping you take ownership of your health. And I'm a former graduate professor, former school teacher, and I am in the wellness business and have been for almost 11 years. And I just know and believe so much in the power of educating ourselves. And so that's what this podcast is all about. And every time that we tape an episode, we have an amazing guest that comes on our show. And today is no exception. In fact, I'm really fired up because our guest today is coming to us all the way from Australia. So on the other side of the globe, which I think is absolutely amazing. I know, Christine, I'm just curious as I'm thinking about that, like it's in the evening here. So what time is it for you right now over in Australia?
Good morning. It is morning.
Oh, is it really? Oh my gosh. Yeah. So it's the evening here. I'm going to be eating dinner soon. So that's so crazy.
And we're the day after. So you're the day before. Oh yeah. It's very confusing.
That is crazy. I didn't even think about that. Oh my gosh. So it's already tomorrow in Australia. That's amazing.
Oh, yes.
Well, awesome. Christine is a very highly qualified natural medicine expert and clinician, and she works with telehealth clients all across the world. And her specialty is in complex, resistant health cases. So, I mean, pretty fancy pants. I'm not going to lie, Christine. And so anyways, but before we dive in, and today's topic, just to give you guys, the topic of today, it is about immunity and building immunity, resilience, and beyond. And so I just think that's such a great and hot topic right now. So again, I hope you have a journal. I hope you take some notes. And Christine, before we dive into the actual interview questions, I would love for you just to connect with our listeners and just share a little bit more about you personally. And then we'll get started with just the awesome wisdom that you're going to drop today.
Oh, I'm blushing from that introduction. So thank you so much for inviting me onto your program, and welcome to all the listeners out there. I'm probably in my 3rd decade, I think it's considered now. I live in the far north tropical end of Queensland. I work worldwide from this very small community, so I'm excited about being able to experience both parts of being global, but also local and not having to live in a big city. So I love that. I'm developing a little veggie patch at the moment. I am the very privileged owner of a rescue cat who basically runs the show here. He's developed from, being timid, barely. We thought he couldn't meow at all. Now being very vocal. And you can't see it, but just off to my right is a giant cat tree where often he spends the whole day. Or he'll be at my feet under my desk. So he's very much a part of clinic world. He doesn't like me working too late. So if it's too late into the evening, he'll jump up onto the desk and bite my hair just to let me know that's enough. And, we've got to keep balance with work and play. So, so that's a little bit about me. I'm married to a wonderful man who's actually a songwriter. So we have a couple of acres here, and he's at the other end of the property in his own building, writing beautiful music and recording beautiful music. So, and he actually did all of the music, performing and production in my series of breathing, relaxation, and meditation CDs. So that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, I love that. Well, and when I went to your website, I noticed, I saw some of those things that you're talking about. So that is so cool that your husband did that. That is amazing. What a great, great thing. And so I'm just curious, what is your rescue cat's name?
Phoenix.
Oh, okay. Oh, so cute. Well, and so I have 2 rescue dogs, Scooby and Shaggy. And so They are the cutest. We were only supposed to get one of them, but the other one, Shaggy, he was the last one that no one picked. He actually was found in a trash can 2 days
Oh,
after all the other puppies and the mom, and he was so sick. He was filled with worms and really, really sick. And so no one picked him. And when we went to pick up Scooby, I was like, we can't just leave him here. And so we ended up taking him as well. And he is the sweetest. Oh my gosh. He's never like gone to the bathroom in the house, ruined anything. Now, Scooby, that's a whole different story. But Shaggy, he is the sweetest dog ever. So I love being a rescue mom. So that's awesome that you are too. Well, very cool. Well, awesome. So let's dive in. So the first question that I would just love to hear your perspective and your wisdom on is, what are the foundations of a healthy immune system?
Well, Dawn, we could talk about this one question all day, because it's seriously like how long is a piece of string. But I'll give you the abridged version. So we know from our recent pandemic that some research popped out about those that had less severity, recovered faster, better outcomes overall, had a healthy, well-balanced microbiome. So those of our listeners that don't know what a microbiome is, it's the 2 kilos of bacteria that lives within our gut, and it's responsible for, it's got a heavy load. So it produces our neurotransmitters, so it affects how we feel mentally, emotionally, helps break down our food. Absolutely huge pressure on this particular little population, and it is a population that needs keeping in balance. It's also quite a sensitive population that is affected by our stress levels, heavy metals. It's affected by what we eat, what we don't eat, so many different things. So number one is, as a foundation, is having a well-balanced or optimally balanced microbiome. The other is our minerals. So, and I'll just backtrack a little bit. The microbiome can be tested. So that is a poo test, which can be done at home. It's really simple to do. You do need to be off probiotics for a couple of weeks before doing that test to get a good baseline. The second one is nutritional. So I like to test minerals, because minerals tell us, do we have any toxic elements, not just healthy ones, but toxic elements, which are in our environment. I know in most of my USA patients, they have some level of toxicity with heavy metals. It's just in the soil these days, just part of our modern environment. Increasingly in Australia, I see it, and also in Europe. And I get a bit of a snapshot of the worldwide nutritional level, because I work globally. So we're testing in all of those continents continuously, and I do see heavy metals. Now, heavy metals can block the beneficial bacteria, cut those digestive enzyme bonds, all those sorts of aspects, as well as affect our way of thinking, our emotionality, all those sorts of things. But we also want to look at the beneficial bacteria and the beneficial nutrients. So we need to make sure they're at optimal levels. And in relation to our immune system, we're looking at zinc, selenium, and a few others that not necessarily are directly related to our immune system, but actually play a supportive role in our immunity as well. But they're the key ones. Now, zinc is very abused during this last pandemic. A lot of people are overusing zinc. I understand why. It became quite a trend, and a lot of people taking high levels of it. But we've got to remember, it has a seesaw relationship with copper. If we take too much zinc, it'll drive our copper down. If we've got both low copper, low zinc, it'll really hit the floor. That's not what you want, especially as we age, but also for emotionality. So microbiome and our minerals. Minerals can be tested quite accurately with a hair sample, which can be done at home. So this is all empowering self-care stuff that can be done very easily. Usually then I like to, if there's any serious abnormalities with minerals, I may suggest a blood test, but remembering blood test is only testing circulating minerals as well. So there's that aspect of it. Now, I want to talk about something that I'm becoming more and more passionate with, because we now can test our neurotransmitters, and our neurotransmitters affect our, neurotransmitters are how we feel, how we think, give us stress resilience, all those sorts of things, make us feel calm or overstimulated. And of course, we now know in modern medicine that how we feel affects both the microbiome, how we detox, how our immune system is balanced, all those sorts of things. So, it sounds like a bit of an outlier, but, if we really got a problem with our immune system, sometimes we want to test our neurotransmitters, and we can do that with a simple urine test. There's a few different ways you can test the neurotransmitters, but that's one I commonly use. And, these are things that tell us where we're at. We can do a blood test that tells us about our white blood cells. But really, when we test that, we might go, okay, we've got low immunity with our white blood cells, but that test doesn't tell us why they're low. So then we go deeper, and I call that having a close look under the hood, using a car analogy. And what we're talking about is those foundation aspects, the microbiome, our minerals, and our neurotransmitters.
No, this is so good. And I know we haven't even talked about this. I shared with you just my journey with breast implant illness. And, several years ago, I was super, super sick, going to all these different doctors, just had lots of crazy symptoms. And of course, all they wanted to do was put me on antidepressants and different medications. But my gut, no pun intended, did not want to do that, and just didn't feel like that was the right decision for me. And thank God someone shared with me about breast implant illness, and that led me on this journey to where I did end up having an explant about 3 years ago. And through that process, I learned, and you, I think, touched on the, well, I felt like you touched on this, but just even about how genetics can play a part with our immune system. And I found out, no, you said detox. That's what you said. And so I found out that I have a mutation of the MTHFR gene, and basically, which means that I have compromised detoxification pathways. And so what's crazy is, not only did the breast implants kind of start this autoimmune like craziness in my body, but it turned on some genes that made me extra sensitive. So I had a lot of old amalgam fillings. I had a bridge in my mouth that had opposing metals, and I had a metal dental implant put in, which that's not good for people who have compromised detox pathways. I was using a lot of supplements that were loaded with artificial ingredients like sucralose. And so all of these things were filling up my bucket. And again, some genes were turned on. And so the last several years, I have done a lot of these tests that you talk about. So I'm so glad that you're educating people. Again, guys, if you don't feel well, there's a root cause, and there are tests out there, and there are people like Christine that can help you understand what tests to take, how to interpret those results, and really get to the root cause. And so, I have been I've got high levels of mold, high levels of lead, and then, high levels of mercury. But thank God I found a great biological dentist in New York City who was able to take out the metal the right way. So again, I think this is such important stuff. And, I love that you touched on just the importance of our gut health. And that's when I knew something was really getting crazy too, because I developed all these food allergies and food intolerances and just massive bloating. And so right there, you guys, like if you have things like that, like she said, I mean, that is something that you can get a test for. And unfortunately, a lot of Western medicine or a lot of typical doctors, they won't give those kind of tests. And so that's why it's important, right, Christine, to to listen to things like this, to go, wait a minute, it's my body, and there are other ways that I can dig deeper to get to the root cause. So I just wanted to share that whole part. But anyways, I don't know if you have anything to add to that before I get on to your next question.
Well, firstly, Dawn, what an incredible journey you've been through. And, I feel for you, because any one of those particular diagnosis is, very challenging to get through. And if you've been doing a lot of that with your own, impetus for treatment, all kudos to you. That's incredible to get through to the other side of it. And look at you. You look beautiful. You're vibrant. You've got great energy. But I think this is something for the listeners to remember, because those people out there that may be listening to us and going, but I feel like I'm on death's door because of any one of those things, which could be like mercury. I see probably 80% of my cases have some level of mercury involvement. And that can be really confusing to people, because they go, but I don't work in an industry that's handling mercury, therefore it's not, part of my issue. But if you have any reason to biologically to have a challenge to detox appropriately, we do accumulate heavy metals that are in our environment. They are in our food chain. And then, mold itself stops us being able to detoxify. And again, this is something I work with very commonly, this combination, if you like, of things. It in itself is an issue and can affect us both neurologically, our microbiome, our immune system, everything. And then we all have these genes. Like everybody goes, I won't say everybody, a lot of people say to me, oh, but I've got these bad genes. No, you have genes. You're human. Everybody has genes. About 80% of the population, they suggest, the experts suggest, have MTHFR. And if we don't have genes, we're not in existence. So it's about the expression of genes. Yes. I did a gene test on myself. I did the full gene panel on myself a few years back when my mother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and I went hunting to see if I had any predisposition. Nothing to do with Alzheimer's, but my goodness, there was a shock when I got my gene testing. So please, if you're out there doing gene testing, if you've got all of these risk factors, because they are just risk factors, please don't have a nervous breakdown. It's about the expression, and this is where wellness principles are involved. And talk about bringing the old-fashioned, ancient, traditional way of managing life into the new age with this new science of gene testing. Together, this brings us so much important information. And I'll talk about my genes, if it's okay with you, Dawn, for a second. My genes were quite shocking. So I had MTHFR, COMP genes, which and homozygous, which is plus. So a high possibility of them expressing if my body's under any stressor. And this is where the stress can be physical. So any microbiome can be creating a physical stressor. Heavy metals can be creating a physical stressor. And then there's life. The pandemic could, being in lockdown can create a physical stressor. Excessive exercise, so overuse, extreme diets, relationship problems, so many things can create stressors. And these can create a situation where these genes can express. I've had, luckily, I don't know how it even came about, but right from a very young age, I was drawn to natural medicine, meditation, yoga, things like this. So I think I read my first book on vegetable juicing at 13.
I love juicing.
So, went through all of these different traditional diets, used them in business, then went on to study them, and eventually studied wellness. And I have a master's degree in wellness, which really just pulled everything I knew together and was really quite interesting how it pulled that together. Now, every week I see patients with similar genetic test results to me, where I've got many test results, many gene tests that predominance in cancer. Now, here's an interesting thing. Many for bowel cancer, and I've had bowel cancer. And, it doesn't mean you're going to get bowel cancer, but it's the only gene that I can see that's expressing. When my husband, who has he dabbles in genetics because he's a brainiac and loves that side of things, but whenever he looks at any of his family's genes that are similar to mine in these COMT and Mayo, which all affect our mental health, he just looks at me and goes, "How are you not a psycho killer?" Just like, how is this? And this is this application of wellness principles. Yeah. So, 60 minutes of yoga, we know from research, produces a daily dose of GABA, which is our feel good, neurotransmitters. So, I've been doing these things for, I don't know, more than half my life. And it just gives you an example of, just because you have these genes doesn't mean that they need to express negatively. And now we know from research certain natural medicines that can support these genes so they don't express negatively. And it gives us an opportunity to build resilience and live a long, healthy life. So just because you've got that risk factor doesn't mean it's going to express. But, certainly, with some of those genes with negatively not having optimal detox, we can look at these specific minerals, for instance, that we've got to have to be able to detox appropriately. We can look at that microbiome, optimize it so we can absorb the beautiful diet that we may have, because often I see a beautiful diet, but we're not absorbing it. So we not just want to consume it, we want to absorb it. And of course, the bowels, they're the thing that nobody talks, or not nobody, but we don't talk about. And I don't suggest you have this conversation over the dinner party table, but, it's something I'm very passionate about. I mean, some of the tools in my clinic where I'm assessing bowels is, I'm looking at all the different colors that we can get. And trust me, I have seen all of these colors in different diagnoses. And this is a funny little thing that this is the inside of a paper towel roll. Coincidentally, this is approximately the volume and the diameter that we want of the bowel movement. Now, we wanted a different shape. We want that giant Cavendish banana shape, but about that volume. And I would say just in the last 7 days, the average reporting of my patients has been half to 3/4 of that, and much more narrow than that. So that in itself is something that you can just do a quick turnaround before you flush and go, hey, what's my color doing? What's my volume doing? I even get some of my patients to keep one of these on the loo system or the windowsill. And, if they've got a bit of an issue with estimating, they can just hold that over and just go, oh yeah, that's about the right volume. These are little at-home things that we can do just to keep track of things.
So I'm just curious, so the different colors, is that something that, like, if people were to go to your website, do you have more information on what that means? Or
I don't, because I'm always cautious, because people can, like gene testing, they can look at that and go, oh my God, I'm having, nervous breakdown because and I think, especially in the mental health populations that we have, I'm finding that people that pre-pandemic were quite strong in their mental health are more prone to anxiety and making assumptions. So it can be a bit scary when you look at some of these things. So I tend to just talk about it clinically. I am hoping to do some more blog articles
that'd be so cool.
just to talk about it. But these are actually paint samples.
Right.
So, and it just because I work online, when I go, tell me about the color of your bowels, and people go, oh, it's just normal. Well, just normal could be any
Yeah.
one of quite a lot. But
Right.
basically, we also don't want people making assumptions that may be wrong and they're self-treating that could cause a secondary problem. I'm always cautious about that. But, the paler colors often means that we're not producing enough bilirubin, which produces in these darker colors.
Yeah.
But there can be many reasons for that. The liver can be not functioning well, but there's Gilbert syndrome that a lot of people aren't aware of that they may have, which,
Wow.
is a genetic
Yeah.
predisposition to liver not working well. And then, orangey, and I'm generalizing here,
Yeah.
there's lots of different reasons, but, more orangey color could be gallbladder related, things like that. And of course, then we've got to look at, if we're having we're eating a lot of vegetables, green
Right.
vegetables, sometimes we could have low stomach acid. We're not breaking down those green vegetables and they're going through us without absorbing, and they're appearing in our bowels. So lots of different reasons that it could be. But yeah, I'm hoping to write more about that when we
Oh,
sort of
that's kind of,
get more into blog writing at later
yeah.
in the year.
It's very fascinating. Well, and so it's interesting again to your point about taking ownership, having some of these tests done. So I went to a conference in Texas last week, or not last week, last month, and there were lots of great speakers from all over the world. And oh crap, now I just lost my train of thought. I was going to tell you. What was I going to say? I just lost my train of thought. Okay, well, it'll come back to me. So we're going to pause. We're going to pause on that. I know. Dang it. It was a good one too. It'll come to me. It's like that favorite part of the movie that you forget and then you go on. But right there that's a little part of my, own issues with the mold, the heavy metals. Oh, and that's what I was going to say. So now I just remembered was that he was talking about how for some of us, these metals can actually be passed down in utero. And he said,
Yeah.
yes, he said, and I had never heard that. And he said that his mother-in-law ended up getting breast cancer. And, he's a big top guy and detox. And he's like, okay, I want to know, like we all have cancer genes technically, right? And, just depends if they get expressed or not. And so he said, I wanted to know the root cause, like what caused that gene, the cancer gene, to turn on for her with the breast cancer. And so he did some heavy metal testing and come to find out she had extremely high levels of lead. And so he had, heard or knew from his research that can be passed down 4 generations. And so he had his wife tested, his daughters tested, and sure enough, you guys, they had the same high levels of lead that the mom who got breast cancer had. And so that was just really eye-opening because it allowed him to do some detox with his wife, with his children, before, maybe something got turned on genetically as their bucket got full. So it's very, very interesting. And, so I love that we're talking about this. So, yeah. So moving on to your next question. So how can a person like measure, and I know you've kind of talked about some of these great tests, but how can a person measure if they have a good foundation for a healthy immune system? Like, how can they find that out?
Generally speaking, most people go to their general practitioner doctor, medical doctor. I hope they do at some point and just have some general blood tests. So first off, your general blood testing tests your white blood cells.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's certainly something that you want to keep an eye on. Now, don't be fanatical, but once a year, once every couple of years, you might want to check in with that. And these are neutrophils, macrophages, basophils, all these sorts of things that you may or may not have noticed on a general blood test. So, we want to have them at an optimal level. And there's quite a lot you can tell just about that. But if that panel comes back normal, or you want to take the next step on checking out what I call the terrain, yeah? The terrain being, the foundation that we're talking about here, is that you can go further and look at what the supportive aspects are of those. So hair tissue mineral testing. Now, that's just done with a sample of hair It's very easy to do. I recommend people do that once a year because it can also help you pick up if there's any toxicities that you're getting from the food chain. And, uh, if you've got somebody that's experienced with working with heavy metal patterns, and there's quite a bit of information that you can gather from hair tissue mineral testing. As well as checking on the terrain. So selenium. Most people are traditionally having Brazil nuts, thinking that they're building up their selenium levels, that then in turn supports their antioxidant status, their immune system. Selenium plays an incredible role in keeping those heavy metals in check. Yeah, so it's an antagonist, but it also plays a role as we age. I've become very aware of it. Now I'm in my 60s. It plays a role combined with estrogen to managing ligaments. Yeah, keeping collagen in ligaments. Yeah, so it's not just about heavy metals and our immune system, but just how we function and how our body is managed as we get older. It's classified as an antioxidant, but it's got a strong antiviral immunity action, and it actually stops the virus RNA ability to change and adapt. So we've heard during the pandemic that virus, now it's a different virus. It's the same, but it's a different strain. So here's our selenium plays an active role in reducing its ability to adapt, but it allows our ability to adapt and plays many other roles. Now, I'm just coming back to Brazil nuts. There was some research about 5 years ago, I think it was now. It was done worldwide, very big research study on organic crops, non-organic crops, Brazil nut crops in Brazil and in many other countries. And the research showed that even within one crop, the selenium levels varied from 0 to toxic.
Oh my gosh.
Yep. So you don't want toxic levels because that causes a different problem. Yeah. It's about that sweet spot. Yeah. Getting things optimal, not too much, not too little. Yeah. Not too low. So I feel, based on that research, and look, I've been in the industry a long time. I'm in my 60s. I used to prescribe, something like 6 Brazil nuts a day to maintain selenium because that's what we thought. And selenium is in Brazil nuts, but it's also in fish. It's also in animal products. We can get it from a wide range of things. But if our selenium is low, we need to over-accentuate that intake. So yeah, we could over-accentuate Brazil nuts, but if we happen to be choosing Brazil nuts from a certain part of the crop that it's not in, you could eat all the Brazil nuts you liked and it's not going to correct a deficiency. And this is where supplementation can be helpful. But I don't recommend ongoing. This is where testing comes into its own. You can test, you can identify, and we're just talking about selenium, it could be anything. We identify selenium's low, we want to build that resilience, not just virally, but anti-aging, have lovely skin, have good healthy ligaments, all those things that selenium does. And so we want to then decide on the dose. And this is where being a clinician and having clinical experience can make a difference, because also I see some people supplementing, but they're supplementing at the wrong type of selenium or too low a dose. Or they're over supplementing, creating a secondary issue. But that's part of that clinical decision making of how long to treat for, depending on the case, etc. But usually I like to look at, and again, depends on the case. But if we've got no heavy metals, everything else is great, we've just got low selenium, I'd probably look at dosing over, possibly 3 months, and then, working with the diet as well, making sure we've got broad spectrum foods that are sources of selenium so the diet can take over eventually. And then, stopping that supplementation and then judging maybe at the 6 or 12 month mark and retesting and going, hey, look, that's now corrected itself. Now let's just make sure we've got sources, broad sources of that nutrient in your diet to manage and maintain. And of course, you can check in once a year, once every couple of years, make sure the body's managing it. Now, here's the interesting thing. Some people, you mentioned genes, yeah? Let's talk about vitamin D in relation to that. So we can test vitamin D with a blood test, and, you know, we can dose all we like. But if we've got low vitamin D receptors genetically, yeah, we might need to actually supplement, because our gene pool might be something that should have been naked in, you know, a lovely sunny country, but now we're living in, you know, London or Canada, and we're in front of a computer instead of outside naked. Yeah. So these are the things that modern life has brought to us. And again, vitamin D is one of those baseline things that we want to check on. Some people have low vitamin D receptors genetically. Some people aren't eating enough sources of the vitamin D, because you can eat sources. It's great in organic grass-fed butter, mushrooms. If we've got mold toxicity, we generally don't eat mushrooms.
I know that.
So, so, or we're not getting our buttocks out in the midday sun. You know, there's a whole combination of things that are going on there. And of course, as we mentioned, heavy metals block and antagonize some of these beneficial nutrients. And selenium can be low from intake nutritionally. Absorption, can be compromised because of things we've spoken about, but also if there's heavy metals. And we can have hidden heavy metals, and we can have heavy metals that show up in our bloodstream as well. And yes, they can be carried down. One of the best ways to detox is to have a baby.
That's all. Well, I'm a little past the baby stage right now, but you know, something that I love to do, and I'd be curious to see what your take is. So I actually invested in an infrared sauna. And so I love using my infrared sauna several days a week. And you know, and I make sure before I get in that I do like a little bit of jumping up and down, or just kind of get my lymphatic system moving. And then, you know, and to your point, like working in some meditation and just some calming type things when I'm in my sauna, you know, has been really helpful for me, because, you know, I agree, like stress can be one of those things that can cause things to flare up. And that was me. Last year we moved to Florida, and you know, we sold our home in a day, and then it took us months to find a home down here. And, you know, we sold our home in Ohio. So it was a pretty big distance to travel and go back and forth. And that was very stressful, and, you know, trying to find a home. And so in that little interim, we ended up living with some friends in their basement, and come to find out after the fact, they had had some water damage and probably mold issues. And so that's where, oh my gosh. And then I was eating Brazilian nuts. That's so crazy you brought that up. And I think I was eating too many of them. So like here I am eating like all these Brazilian nuts. I'm in the basement where there was mold and the stress of the move. And so that just kind of, you know, just caused, it was a perfect storm. But anyways, but the sauna has been wonderful. And I don't know about you, but I'm a huge proponent of grounding. So I live down here at the beach, and I, like you said, I know the importance of vitamin D. I've had that genetic testing done. I know that I have a vitamin D deficiency genetically. And so I make sure, like, you know, several times a week that I'm in my beach chair. The beach is like 5 minutes from my house, and beautiful. My toes are in the sand, and I wait to put on any sunblock for a little while, so that way I can get the vitamin D. And then, and I don't know if you even want to touch on this, and I'm very careful about what types of sunblock I use, because that's another thing that, you know, there's a lot of sunblocks out there that are filled with toxins and, you know, can do a lot of damage. So I don't know if you
absolutely. And I agree with you. If somebody has had mold illness and or heavy metal toxicity, infrared saunas can be very helpful. The only caution I'd put on it is some people's adrenals are at a point where they don't want to be in the infrared sauna for too long.
Right.
So a little bit of a caution there. And of course, if somebody is experiencing dehydration, just low water intake, you want to get that water intake up before you start going down that path of infrared saunas, but great for the nervous system as well. It helps the nervous system to adapt, and also the immune system to adapt. And this is the thing, the adaptability of the immune system is very important. And part of that builds that resilience. But yeah, the sun, a lot of people go, oh, but I'm out in the garden, working out in the garden, and so my vitamin D must be at a high level. No, not necessarily. Simple blood test, you can check your vitamin D levels, and then it's about, okay, assessing, are we consuming sources in our diet?
Yeah.
Are we absorbing? Yeah, so we might be eating lots of sources, but are we absorbing? And even getting out in the sun. I know this sounds very particular, but hey, that's just how life is.
Yeah.
But rather than use a sunblock, I'd look at covering up in some nice, cotton or linen to cover up. It's much better. But just in relation to absorbing vitamin D, if we develop a tan, it compromises our vitamin D absorption. So Indigenous people generally, especially now they're living indoor lives, they commonly have low vitamin D because of their skin coloring. So, me, I'm quite pale. I come from English background. My grandparents were English. And my skin is naturally pale. So for me to go outside, I can absorb vitamin D. I've got low vitamin D receptors genetically, but I can absorb it easier than somebody that's got a tan,
Wow.
or naturally darker skin. But we know from research, this is the lovely mix of, traditional, old, ancient medicine techniques and science. We can test. We can test our genes.
Yeah.
So that tells us, okay, I might need to be on a supplement ongoing, or I might need to over accentuate those food items. I may need to go out in the sun more often. And if your skin, because of your heritage, is a darker tone, you may need to explore a private area where you can expose your buttocks. Now, this is where we get, because it's a nice space, it usually doesn't see the sun. So just putting a G-string on, I just, people that live in apartments that got a little balcony that gets the sun, I just get them to, get a very low sunbed or throw something on the veranda floor and be comfortable, have a G-string on, have a sarong that you can throw over yourself if somebody's peering from another balcony or something, or if you need it. We want to be safe and caring for everybody else's, what they're seeing as well. Get your buttocks out there in the midday sun. Now, we don't want to develop pink. So we don't want sunburn. That's counterproductive, causes problems. But, depending on what country you're in, what season it is, just a few minutes daily in the midday sun of the buttocks can be really helpful. I could bang on forever about what people are putting on their skin. I think what I will say about sunblock in relation to skin, anything we put on our skin, we absorb. I actually do a bit of what's called dermal delivery of nutrients for some herbs and nutrients because some people just can't swallow supplements.
Right.
So we do that. Now, it just gives you, if you're out there listening to Dawn and I, this tells you how well the skin absorbs things. So we've got it, and it doesn't differentiate. So it doesn't differentiate between if there's a heavy metal in something we're putting on our skin, if there's something healthy we're putting on our skin. So do read ingredients on absolutely everything. One thing that I'm really aware of these days is petrochemicals in topical things. Please read labels, whether you're putting it in your armpits, putting it on your makeup, or if you're considering, what's called suntan lotion, please avoid. But, even sun tanning color, the artificial coloring to develop
Oh
a
yeah.
tan.
Yep.
There are a few natural ones, I believe, out there now. But again, keep in mind, heavy metals are natural. Yeah. So we often think they're not, but these things come out of the soil, out of rocks. They're naturally occurring. And so natural is a marketing term.
Yep.
you know,
Yep.
Pure is a marketing term. Don't trust what it says on the bigger label. Read the ingredients, read the fine print. And nowadays, often because of the internet, you can actually access, in your country, it's the FDA. In my country, it's TGA. And these are government regulated bodies that actually list all the subsets of ingredients that they don't have to legally put on the label.
Oh, interesting.
So when I'm looking at a supplement and a complex case where there might be fructose malabsorption and hypersensitivity to some of those ingredients, I will look at the TGA listing of those items. And sometimes it's really complex. What have I become aware of? There's a copyrighted, registered formulation called, I don't know whether I've got the right pronunciation for this, MWell, which is in all sorts of medications like contraception pills and, even nutritional powdered foods, and some marketed laxative products and things like that. It's basically petrochemical.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, if you don't recognize what it says, go that next step, know your labels. And look, it's complex, even for a clinician. I'm, forever doing research and going, what does that mean? Just remind me what that is. Get online and, go, what that is that's petrol.
Well, it's the same with foods. Like I'm a big proponent of, like, if you can't pronounce the ingredients of the foods that you're eating, like, you really need to take a step back. And so no, I'm so glad that you touched on that. So we've been talking about the immune system and just how to optimize it, and just be able to live a healthier life. And so and I know you've given us already so many great tools, but are there any other additional tools that a person can use in order to really optimize their immune system so that they can live their healthiest life?
Well, certainly stress management.
Yes.
Yeah. I know most naturopaths, natural medicine practitioners, and these days even doctors, it's like, take this pill. Yeah. Now, I'm prescribing pill form of herbs, nutrients every day, all day, but I'm looking at, are we exercising? Now, we know from research that 30 minutes walking a day helps manage mood. And of course, we know that helps with digestion. Yeah. So some people are over exercising.
That was me.
And we, and sometimes we're doing that to manage our low dopamine, which is a neurotransmitter. Yeah. So taking stock of what we're doing every single day. Am I, instead of doing one relaxation yoga, am I doing power yoga twice a day? Now, please don't email me and send me messages going, why am I denigrating power yoga? I love power yoga. But for some people, one class, twice a week is appropriate. It's like, and we should be doing more relaxation, more yin style yoga. Possibly. I don't know what, out there your situation is. But if we're over exercising, we see that in Olympics. So quite often, they're reaching a certain level of over exercising for the Olympics. There's a goal in mind. And often just before the Olympics, they get cold or flu. Yeah. You often see that. And this is because too much exercise suppresses the immune system, because our bodies are quite ancient in their operation. So they're not understanding that you're just going there to socialize and have fun. They're thinking that you're running, doing a marathon to get away from, a woolly mammoth that's chasing you to, or, opposing tribe, or, it's putting a stressor on the body. So we're coming full circle now. We talked about stress early in the piece, and that expression of our genes. So any stress, physical, mental, emotional, environmental, negatively affects our immune system. So 30 minutes walking, an hour might be a good amount, but we've got to be careful we're not over exercising, not under exercising. We want that sweet spot, that's right for us in our biochemistry. For some people, we've got grief, we've got trauma that can block your immunity. Now, this is something I'm seeing more and more in my clinic, and there are some key nutrients that can help the HPA access. Don't mean to get real technical there, but it's right in the center of the brain. It gets negatively affected when we've got a history of trauma, and then the feedback mechanisms communicating the operation of our hormones can have a knock-on effect and be a problem with our immune system. So, if you've had some trauma, you're not sure whether it's affecting you, there's some fantastic skills out there, everything from, journaling for trauma to actually going and doing some talk therapy or some CBD, CBT, not CBD, CBT for therapy. And look, I've got to say, just sharing out there with all of our friends, life happens to all of us. I like to check in. I actually go and see somebody and talk to them just to make sure I'm not carrying any baggage around. Because like everybody else, I'm human. Sometimes my cases traumatize me a bit. My father and brother were killed in a car accident when I was in my early 20s. So I took a very active role of making sure that I was able to process that. I mean, you never get over that. Many of us out there have experienced some level of trauma. I've had relationship breakups. That can be traumatizing. So I check in occasionally and make sure none of that old stuff is popping up and affecting me in some subconscious way, holding me back from experiencing a well life, a happy, healthy life. So, talk therapy, having somebody that can be objective about it. Because even though I'm educated, trained in that area in relation to wellness, I can't know. We can hide it from ourselves. Eating well, eating 4 to 6 handfuls of vegetables a day. And a handful is in relation to our body size. So upside down spider, I call it. A handful of vegetables. Drinking enough water, for you and your climate and your weight. And then adjusting if you're sweating it out in an exercise routine or doing sauna, adjusting. So getting that right can be a bit tricky. Having a healthy bowel movement. So this is my little stage prop. It's the inside of a paper towel roll. We want, and this is, I used to go okay sign. This is about how, the width of our bowel movement we want. This is approximately the amount. You can see that in ratio to my shoulders a bit better. So making sure we're detoxing appropriately. You mentioned genes, and some of us have some genes that, if they're expressing, compromise our ability to detox. So this is a way we can check in every day. You just have a quick turnaround before you flush and go, hey, I think I've had a healthy evacuation. But even after we've had a bowel movement, how do you feel? Now, you and I are into animals a bit. So I always think about cats that, when they've had a bowel movement, they run around. Or mine does.
Yeah.
Most of my cats, they have a bowel movement, they jump out of the litter box, put the litter everywhere, no matter what I do.
Yeah.
And then run around the house crazy for just a couple of seconds. Now, I'm not saying you're going to do that to have a healthy bowel movement, but I'll share something with our listeners out there. The bowel, when it evacuates, there's a relaxation to let go of the anal sphincter. Now, obviously, it's not that big, but a
Right.
relaxation, parasympathetic nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
And then after the bowel has released, it draws up. So that anal sphincter movement of relaxation drawing up is parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
And that sympathetic nervous system gives us a lift in energy to get on with the day.
Yeah.
So that's why I really focus in on everything about the bowel movement. What color is our bowel movement? What shape is it? How easy was it to pass? All these sorts of things are things you can be checking in on, keeping a little diary. If you're not too sure, you can take that diary to your natural medicine practitioner and just check in with the bowel movements, how they're going. Some of my patients are so used to this, they actually call me when something changes in their bowel movement and say, I haven't got a Cavendish banana anymore. They start using these terms, or they'll send me an email with a color chart and go, it's something, it's this color, should we talk? And I go, yes, we should. And do that. But you can actually just keep track of some of these things. But broad spectrum of nutrition, making sure there's nothing in that bowel movement that is not undigested. So we shouldn't be seeing fibers from vegetables or recognizing arugula or tomatoes in our bowel movement. That's a reflection of our stomach acid strength and our microbiome. So just some of the things that we talked about today: exercising, not too much, not too little, managing our trauma, our mental health, doing relaxation technique. I've got a 12-minute relaxation that you can go to my website and download. It's called Express Relax. The most common thing people say is, I don't have time. So I created something that was fast.
That's awesome.
But we can do breathing techniques. We can do hot and cold showers. We can get out in nature bathing. We've moved to a property that's got a lot of tropical plants in it, and some just visually beautiful plants. But just being around some of those, sometimes I just go and walk out there, and if I've got somebody that messages me and says they're running out late for an appointment, and and it's only 10 minutes, sometimes because I work from home, so I'll get out of the office and I'll walk around, and I'll just get out and have a look at the colors. It's good for the eyes to do that, look into the distance, a lot of these different things. Do a bit of yoga, gentle yoga, a lot that we can do. But eating well, being calm when we eat, chewing a lot, checking on our bowel movements, all those sorts of things.
Well, and I think too, like, I know for me, I've gotten really intentional just about my sleep. Like I used to be a night owl, and I would burn the candle at both ends. And now I'm trying to get in that circadian rhythm, to where when the sun sets, I'm trying to go to bed, within an hour or two, and then trying to wake up earlier, when the sun rises. And so that's been really helpful, I think, as just part of my recovery, is just really making sure I'm getting good sleep, and that it's at a consistent time each night and each morning with getting up. So, that's
very, very good discipline. And I use the word discipline because everything in our modern society suggests that we shouldn't be doing any of that.
I know.
So it does take discipline. And, those changes of the moon, sun aspect, really is a nice time to actually do relaxation technique, breathing technique, a little bit of yoga. And it doesn't have to be sitting in lotus,
Right.
in wearing orange robes. It's about just stopping
Mm-hmm.
and checking in with oneself. Is the breath erratic? How am I today
Mm-hmm.
by some of these feelings? And just turning our sight inside ourselves and checking in. Do I need a bit more nurturing today? Do I need a bit
Yeah.
more calmness? Do I need a bit more stimulation
Mm.
today?
Yeah.
And just sitting. I did my initiation into advanced yoga and meditation in Scandinavia, on the other
Oh, wow.
side of the planet from me. And it was a crazy time in my life. It was during when I turned 40. To turn 40 years old, I did a 3-month silent retreat.
Oh,
Uh,
nice. Yeah.
Crazy when I look back on it, but it was the best thing for me at
Yeah.
that time. But I discovered in Scandinavia that in more olden times, it was tradition to sit quietly at sunset.
Mm.
So
Wow.
at that changing that twilight time, just everybody would sit and not sit cross-legged, not sit in a circle, not do it, just sit and reflect and be calm for just a few minutes.
Mm.
And I'm sure in Scandinavia that's now like us. It's not part of any day-to-day modern life, but it's interesting. Quite often we can see the roots of wellness principles in some traditional cultures,
Yeah.
uh, even as far as eating cultured food,
Mm.
fermented foods and things like that, just as in small amounts,
Yeah.
to maintain health and digestion, whereas a lot of that has been forgotten. But hopefully you and I are resurrecting some of these more
Yeah.
ancient techniques. And I'm always mindful that I sit uh, for a predominant amount of the day. I was out on my rare, wandering around the shops and looking at all the beautiful things, which I don't very often get out to do. And I'm not much of a shopper, but I just felt like, I was falling behind in what was happening in that world. So I like to keep balance with that as well.
Yeah.
And uh, the lady in the shop asked me, oh, it was a weekday, and she's like, oh, do you not work? And I go, no, I've just, taken the afternoon off to do
Yeah.
a little few things for myself. And she said, oh, what do you do? And I said, I'm a naturopath. And she said, oh, that sounds lovely. And I must say, I was a bit shocked at, oh, that sounds like a beautiful thing to do. And I'm thinking, all I do is talk about people's poo and their stress and all that sort of
Yeah.
thing and look at blood tests. And I'm like, it's interesting, your perception of that.
Yes. Yeah.
And I said to her, what do you think I do? She thought I sat around just chatting to people drinking herbal tea.
That's so
And
funny.
I said, sorry, no,
Yeah.
that's not what I do. But I think it's very sweet that you think that's what I do.
Yeah.
But again, it was really interesting, a perception
Hmm.
of natural medicine. But these days, natural medicine is hopefully more scientific. We've got access to fantastic tools. We've got access to the natural tools we had before, but research, so we can be very targeted with dosing of active constituents from herbs. We know some herbs that help genes,
Yes.
support genes, all sorts of things that we work with. And yes, I talk about poo a lot.
That's okay. Oh, awesome. All right. So we just have a couple more questions for our audience. And so one of them is, so just as like a troubleshooting type question. So what if I have a compromised immune system, such as an autoimmune disease or just an autoimmune response? What are some pieces of advice for people who are in that situation, which that's me. So, hey, I'm excited to hear your answer on that one.
Well, I definitely am an advocate, and I'm a bit biased because I'm a clinician, of working with a natural medicine practitioner that has experience. Now, this is the key factor in the things that are going on in your case. There's such a broad spectrum of underlying drivers for autoimmune conditions. and they have to be treated individually.
Yes.
So sometimes we see multiple sclerosis, an autoimmune condition that can be driven from a couple of different bacteria, but one bacteria that can be tested in the gut is Klebsiella. It's a common underlying driver of multiple sclerosis. Now, there's multiple reasons for driving MS, vitamin D, copper deficiency, things like that. But, that's something that needs to be carefully addressed. Also, we don't want to stimulate the immune system. So here's where I'm finding the pandemic is been aggravating a few autoimmune conditions where, everybody's going, oh, have loads of vitamin C, loads of zinc, have all of that. And that will help you avoid, minimize, get over viruses. Now, if you've got an autoimmune condition, that could actually lead you down a path of being very unwell. Now, it doesn't mean you can't have those things, but, it really needs clinical decision making. We test those levels, we bring the levels up to optimal, but we do it slowly and at low dose. So we don't switch on that immune system because it's already over responding. And sometimes we want to put things in place to calm the immune system. Yeah, we can do that with herbal medicine. We can calm the immune system so it's not over responding. Yeah. So autoimmune needs careful addressing. Now, you can, if you've got autoimmune thyroid, often we can calm those overproduction of antibodies by selenium supplementation. So, deciding whether we need selenium, deciding whether, really it's just a dysfunctional immune system because it might be low in zinc, deciding is it because heavy metals are affecting the thyroid. These are all things that need to be worked through in a differential diagnosis. Now, I know a lot of people are out there doing their own treatment, doing their own testing, to the point where I actually decided to make a lot of testing, functional testing, this is available to the general public because people were screaming out and they weren't testing. So finding that balance I thought was a challenge. So it was a lot of decision making to make that available to people. So if you're out there and you do want to take ownership, which Dawn and I are saying, take responsibility, check in on these things. But often doing a test means that you've got to invest time and experience in analysing it and then applying that to your individual case to decide what's going on. Often these test results come with generic recommendations. Be cautious with them. Often that is an automated analogue that's produced by a computer. It may not be the right fit for your case, but certainly if you want to take that first step and do a little bit of seeing how you go with your own testing, you can test yourself. But I've got the testing I've made available online, but also, if you don't want me to treat or any practitioner to treat you, I also, give you the option to be able to have it analysed, just that test. We don't know about your whole case, but just to make sense of that test. And then, of course, treatment's a whole different ball game.
That's
so
nice.
Yeah.
So
Just take ownership and your level of ownership.
Yeah. So you're saying if people buy these tests from your website, there's two different parts. They could just pay you to analyze the results, and then
they could just do the test. They get the result. No input from me.
Okay, got you.
So that's step one. Number two is, different purchase is the test with my analysis.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And usually, all the time we send out a questionnaire so I can, at least analyze it a bit. Now, I'm not taking the case, I'm not treating it. And, I put all of these cautions on there. I'm making this recommendation that this is what in relation to this one test, but we might need 3 types of tests to treat. So it's just about that one test. And then third option is actual full-blown treatment. Right. And then I'm advising what tests are appropriate for the case, etc. So there's lots of different ways to go about health. And, I think in every one of those steps, I'm always suggesting that I'm just the partner.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
As a natural medicine practitioner, it's a it's a different mindset to being a medical doctor.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you're going to see a functional medical doctor, it's all about diagnosis and pill.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Maybe a herb, maybe a nutrient.
Yep.
Whereas as having a master's in wellness and being a natural medicine expert, what I'm looking at is you as a person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
Yep.
often people present and they go, oh, I've got all these tests and I've got all these problems, but I'm seeing them and going, they're stressed.
Yep. Yep.
So stressed and dehydrated. I'm just
Yep.
picking things here, but it might be, let's start with that, because your digestion is going to be shut down if you're overproducing adrenaline. Yeah. So it doesn't matter what pill, what diet you're on. If we don't get that calmness for and so the energy involved with digesting is huge. So if we're needing that in our nervous system to be in sympathetic nervous system dominance, which is run or stand and fight,
Mm-hmm.
which might just be stressed about the kids getting ready to go to school.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or stressed about my job or my relationship or what happened last year or whatever. If we don't get that nervous system calmed down, we're going to have a compromised immune system.
Yeah.
And partially we're going to be making that worse by our digestion not being functional enough, because the body just automatically takes the energy from digestion and puts it in the eyes, hands and feet so we can fight or flee.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a twofold thing. I think I've got quite off track there, and I don't know whether I answered your question.
No, but that was good. Well, and I'm just curious because, I believe in that too. And one of the strategies that I do just to help, because again, I've had digestion issues and whatnot, is I have applied some intermittent fasting just to give my body, a break from digesting all the time so that it can fix and repair, different things in my body. So I don't know, that's a strategy that I like to use too. So I don't know what your thoughts are with intermittent fasting, but
Look, like my thoughts on most things, because I work with highly individualized treatments, sometimes people present and they're doing intermittent fasting. They're either doing it the wrong way, and or it's not appropriate for them. So somebody that is terribly malnourished,
right,
and exhausted adrenals, and hypoglycemic,
right,
it may not be appropriate at this time. So it's a great prevention strategy. Yeah. So maintenance, prevention, but treatment, depending on what's going on with that person, it may not be appropriate. And more often than not, when somebody presents to me, and I only treat people that are unwell, we've got multiple things going on. So it's not a general population recommendation. It's just if you've got a mixed bag of things going on, check in with your practitioner to see if that's right for you. Sometimes it is, and then get details of how long that fast should be. I generally start people with just having a lighter dinner, having dinner earlier, things like that, which in effect is intermittent fasting, but really it's just resting the digestion a bit. But some people, depending on where their biochemistry is at and what's going on with their adrenals, etc., some people need to have a snack before bed. So different horses for different courses.
Yeah, no, I love that. Well, and I think it just goes back to your point. Like, it's important to work with a doctor who has knowledge in, what your issues are. And that's been, a big part of my journey, is just making sure that I am working with someone, who is familiar with what I'm dealing with. So I love that. All right. So last question. So what are some of the challenges to our immune system thanks to our modern society that we live in? And, I know with the whole 5G network and just, having the TV on late at night and just the blue light, all that kind of stuff, can affect us. And so what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I hear you. And yes, all of that is problematic. Having said that,
Mhm.
I love all the technology. I
I
wouldn't be able to do the work I do and be
know.
accessible to I'd be just, eccentric to location. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I love the technology. I love that we can, look at the World Wide Web on our phone. I mean, that's a crazy concept if you just think back a few years ago.
Oh, I know.
So I love it. But we can be hypersensitive to some of that. You talked about the light, all these things. Definitely, if you can avoid living underneath a radio tower or
Yeah.
mobile phone tower. When I was looking for this property, that's part of how we look at where we live. Even when we were renting, there were places that were beautiful, fitted with me location-wise, all these sorts of things, but they were too close to, some sort of radio tower, etc.
Yeah.
So you want to avoid that. We can't always. I'd say the biggest challenge to our immune system is overstimulation,
Mm.
an imbalance in calm.
Mhm.
So the sympathetic nervous system is our fight or flee.
Mhm.
Yeah. Parasympathetic is calm. Now I'm simplifying it. It's a little bit more complex than that. But if we just think about go and stop, we need more of that stop. We need, and I don't mean stop as in do nothing, but relaxation activities. Yeah. Anything that stimulates and brings up the balance of the parasympathetic nervous system. Now, I'm here talking to you, Dawn, and all these people that are listening to us. My nervous system is switched on. Yeah. It's switched on when I'm working. If it wasn't, I would be a bit dull and wouldn't be.
Right.
Yeah. So it needs to be switched on. But if I work too late, so switched on too late, I have trouble sleeping.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it might be I'm overthinking about cases or just awake, and of course, what do I do then is I go onto my phone and that gives me the wrong light and overstimulation from a different perspective because I get excited about something I've seen online for sale or something like
Yeah.
that. Goodness knows. So it's about that downtime. So if we can start to minimize screen time, TV, even watching, some exciting, interesting, we may be enjoying it, movie, it can overstimulate us. So if we move all of that earlier, try and have nights, like with how we should deal with alcohol, have nights off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have nights off from the TV where maybe it's a full moon. We can go for a little walk in the full moon with our partner, with our kids. Yeah. Slow, calm, nothing too exciting, getting some moon rays, get up a little bit earlier. Yeah. Rather than sleeping in, get that first sun, seeing the sun, not staring at the sun, that'll damage your eyes, but just getting exposed to the daylight, as you mentioned, circadian rhythm. If our circadian rhythm is out of balance, it affects negatively our immune system.
Yeah.
So there's these basic rituals of things that happen. And this is why regulating what we do of a day, doing yoga at a certain time of day, breathing techniques at a certain day, eating approximately the same time daily helps switch on our digestive enzymes. Yeah. So that means we absorb more of our food. So routine. Yeah. Healthy routine. It doesn't mean we can't have fun.
Right.
It doesn't mean you can't stay up late occasionally. But it's about what we do every day: regular exercise, regular rest and restore, getting in the garden. Yeah, that can be helpful. We know that those people that are involved with planting the simplest of things have a different microbiome to those that don't. Those that exercise have a different microbiome to those that don't. Yeah, so we can see that these activities that we do every day affect some of those things that we initially spoke about during this chat. our microbiome, our detoxification. Yeah.
Mhm.
These things are all affected by what we do every day. Exposure to sun, exposure to moon,
Mhm.
exposure to plants, so forest bathing,
Mhm.
downtime, just not looking at anything, not being overstimulated,
Yeah.
things like that. Rest and restore.
Well, you've inspired me to maybe not watch Netflix tonight before I go to bed and maybe go for a moonlit. I'll have to see what the moon situation is here. But we've walked the beach a few times late at night with the moon, and it's so pretty and I love it. So, such a great reminder. But well, awesome. Well, this has been so amazing. And I always love to give our guests just kind of like the last kind of final word. Because I know as you're talking and you're sharing and you're pouring into everybody, maybe a certain thought, just comes upon your heart. And so, what's kind of like just a last piece of advice or wisdom or whatever's on your heart that you would like to share with our guests today as we close this out, Christine?
This is a great question, Dawn. My what I think we all forget is that we only have one vehicle,
Mm-hmm.
and that's our body.
Yeah.
So think about how frequently you service the car,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, or any equipment, anything that you use every day. You get it serviced, you get it updated, you clean, grease, oil, do a recheck, yeah. So keep in mind, we only have one body at the moment. Maybe in the future generations they may change that, but at the moment, this is our vehicle. We need to service it. We need to give it rest time. We need to grease and oil change. We need to give it a checkup. Yeah, we've talked about some of the testing that we can do that help us maintain this vehicle, which is our only vehicle that carries us through for our whole life. So check in on that and take care of your vehicle, your body.
That's so good. I love that. And this has been so awesome today, Christine. You just have so much wisdom and I can just really feel your heart to help other people. And, the reality is that our world has a lot of sick people in it. And, the work that you do, it matters. And just helping people get to that root cause and not just quickly treating it with a prescription that potentially could be causing more harm than good. So I just love that you really slow down and help people as a partner, like you mentioned, in their journey. So thank you so much for today. And, to all of the listeners, thank you guys again for being on the HealthyU podcast. And please invite your friends, your family, to subscribe to this. You can watch it on YouTube. We are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. If you don't want to see our faces, you can just listen to us while you're in the car or gardening, right?
Yes.
We do hope that you will share this with your friends, your family. And it's truly just been a privilege to spend time with you guys today. So again, Dawn Funk, just thank you so much. And Christine, thank you for being on here. And Christine's information will be in the show notes. So if you guys want to go check out her website and just some of the amazing things that she talked about that she offers, including the amazing meditation music that her husband creates. Go check it out. I know I have, and was really just inspired by all the different great things that she offers. So thank you so much for being on here. Until next time, have a wonderful rest of the day, friends.